But as we're seeing right now, Blitzkrieg has failed. So what's your opinion about it?
War is escalating on Ukrainian territory for over a month, and since the 24th of February, they've wanted to occupy big cities in Ukraine, in the eastern Ukraine, and somehow Russians managed to occupy only a small, middle-sized cities for a couple of days, but by counterattacking armed forces of Ukraine, won the cities back. So I have a question, namely, why did Russians fail with the Blitzkrieg? Because there were a huge topic on the Russian propaganda machine that, okay, we'll take Kiev in 2 days and there will be a final concert with celebrations and people will hooray all over the cities in Ukraine, and it will be kind of big celebration for the whole Russian-speaking population and for Russian nation and for all the Ukrainian folk. So why did Russian fail with the Blitzkrieg? What's your opinion, guys?
I would divide the reasons on the three groups. First, that's inside Russia reasons. Second, inside Ukrainian reasons, and third, it's world reasons. So first, starting with inside Russia reasons, just because Vladimir Putin, and it's really important to understand, it's a type of president that's ruining his country from inside. I'm not sure how well aware the people from the West about the situation, but the type of government and the type of ruler that they have in Russia, it's based on the corruption. So not the best people, not the best professional taking place in the government position, in the ruler position, in management position, but the people who can steal and share the stolen goods with the others the best. So, and this system works, but in a long-term relations, in a long term, this system, it just kills itself, just because you're getting managed not by the most talented people, but the people who most talented in stealing the goods. And that's the inside Russian reasons, just because they were not ready and they cannot be ready until the corruption goes in the government. And that relates to any other country who has in corruption. Ukraine is well known by having corruption as well. And that's really a problem in Ukraine. A big problem but I mean, we're at least doing something with that, and slowly, but we're fighting it. So in the end, in the facts, it resulted that the Russian army was not as well prepared, not as well equipped, not as well educated and trained as it may look like, just because due to the corruption reasons, everyone is saying that army is perfect, but in reality, they're just stealing money, they're stealing everything, and I mean, it's not going to work. The second thing about the inside reasons of Russia, it's a world where Vladimir Putin is living, up to my decision. Just because he's sitting in a big cabinets on the long tables, he don't have a real understanding of what's going on in the world, and the information that he's getting it's pretty limited by his surrounding. Just because no one wants to tell him a bad news and lose his warm place and the place where he's getting money. So they had no real understanding of the situation, of the political, of the military situation in Ukraine and in the world, and they were not prepared physically by the corruption processes, according to the corruption processes. The second group of factors, they are inside of Ukraine. So our army was growing up, it was developing. I mean, in 2014, when we first faced the conflict and when we first faced the war with Russia, our army was a disaster as well, according to these corruption reasons that we have. Our army was not ready to fight, not ready for anything, but we're managed to resolve, or at least to start resolving the situation. And for the past 8 years, I mean, I have to say that my father is military. He's an officer that spent entire life serving in the army. And I mean, for the last 8 years, our army and military forces were just growing, developing, and upgrading as fast as it's possible. And now we can see the results of this upgrade, just because our comparing small army fighting against the second army in the world, and they're fighting successfully for more than a month now, and they keep fighting. And also it's political and it's civilian reason, just because people in army in Russia, they're fighting for the interests of their president. Our people, they're fighting for their own homes. We're fighting for our lands. We're fighting for our children. We're fighting for our future. We have nowhere to back up. We have nowhere to go except our land, and we have no other chances except fight and defend our territory. And as well, maybe they took as example the operation in Crimea when it was occupied, just because it went really easy. There was no firearm conflict. There was no like open battle, and maybe they thought that that's how it's going to be in the entire Ukraine according to this operation. But I mean, a lot of things changed in the 8 years, and we were kind of ready for that, if I can say so, that someone can be ready for war. And the third group of reasons, that the world reasons, just because I'm assuming that they thought that the world will react the same as they reacted in 2014 when they started some sanctions. But after the situation get colder, they keep shaking Putin's hand, they keep opening doors for him, they keep the dialogue. But right now we see that the entire West civilization is united under the fear of, under threat of Russia. And probably that's where they weren't expecting. They thought that the West will fight with each other. They will fight for their own business, money interests. But right now, and that's really positive thing that kind of impressed me, that a lot of countries, a lot of people all around the world, they're supporting us, and they're standing together, which is really important in this situation. So probably that's the main reasons up to me.
To my mind, when Russia occupied the Crimea back in the days in 2014, there were no real sanctions. There were no real feedback from the Western countries, from the Western governments, from the Western world as itself. And right now, I guess they woke up. They understand what's going on really in the post-Soviet countries. And I'm talking about Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, Georgia, whatsoever. And to my mind, it's kind of a positive thing. It took 8 years to get to this understanding. Unfortunately, against the background of super horrifying war that Russian government started in the Ukraine. But as you've said, Anikita, it's a positive thing, and it's kind of game changer. Maybe not all the countries do what they really can to prevent and to finish the war, but at least they woke up and they understand what's really going on.
Yeah, because they thought that the problem of Russia and Ukraine, that's our own problem, and that's our inside question. So that just let these guys do whatever they want to do until they're not taking any others involved. But now we all have understanding that the deal not in particular Ukraine, not only in Ukraine, and this trend won't stop in Ukraine, because it will, if we won't stop it now, it will keep growing, and it keep threatening the entire world, and nobody will be in safe if we're not standing for Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the war has to be stopped in Ukraine right now. Otherwise, as you guys saying, it will advance towards to the west, and like Poland going to be next, or some Baltic countries, which were as well part of beloved Soviet Union. And nobody really want to go back to USSR. Honestly, everyone trying to go as far as possible away from it, and nor Ukraine, nor other Western countries, nor Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Georgia, whatever. Nobody really want to go back to the times. Back in the days, people were living for idea, but right now everyone got to taste what's the proper civilization life is like. And honestly, going backwards. No, it's a reverse evolution. It's a step back to the grave.
The days of freedom is really very good, and once people get it, it's really difficult to go and make a step back to the Tsar, Imperial Russia, or Soviet Union, or whatsoever.
I have as well a question for you, Anikita. How is the situation right now in Ukraine? Like, we both of us come from Kharkiv, biggest Russian-speaking city in Ukraine, And so the Russian culture, the Russian cinematography, the Russian music, Russian literature, everything has been super close to us, and we've been living with it for, well, our whole life. How is it right now? How did it change? As I was saying, my friends are trying to speak more Ukrainian, or like in my dad group of the territorial defense, they like if somebody playing Russian song, they're just saying like switch it off or something. How do you feel right now about the Russian culture or Russian language or everything like that?
I would say that we need to divide like Russian language, Russian culture, just because, as you said before, and it's true, the Russian language is really common, and at least very common in the territory of Ukraine in past, and it's still common just because a lot of people are still talking Russian, and that's the fact that surprised me, kind of surprised me at the moment when we were traveling from Dnipro to Vinnytsia when we were on the road, just because I was pissed off of all the situation. And I mean, I'm a Russian speaker from I was born. I know Ukrainian well, but my main language, which I'm using to talk with my family, with like in the stores, in the supermarket, on the streets, it's Russian. And I started to using Ukrainian more, which is, I mean, it's harder for me, just I don't have such practice. It takes time to get practice and to get sounds well. And in small cities, I tried to use Ukraine, but a lot of people were telling me that, man, if you feel comfortable using Russian, just use Russian. We don't have nothing against it because we do understand that in your region you're talking Russian, and I mean that's how we live. We have no aggression to that. We have nothing to that, and that's probably the situation in the entire Ukraine. So here is a lot of people. There are a lot of good people, a lot of bad people as well. So people who are, I would say, stupid and not forward-looking, they're fighting and they're trying to force everyone to talk Ukrainian and do not use Russian at all. But there are as well a lot of people that understand the entire situation and that the language by itself is not meaning anything, like nothing offensive, nothing dangerous, because it's just a language. It's just the way how the people speaking and communicating between each other. So now living in Vinnytsia, but I mean, mainly people here using Ukrainian just because it's more common language here, but I have no problems using Russian language and everyone understand that. Regarding the culture situation, a little different, and I totally agree with your example, and probably that's how it works here. And I'm zooming everywhere in the world. We're not talking about some classical things of culture, like classical artists or classical poets and so on, because I mean it's different. But nowadays, the modern Russian culture, they're not prohibited, but they're not well faced here. And nobody wants to hear, nobody wants to listen, and nobody wants to get anything common with modern Russian culture. And that's the total importance that probably we need to understand, and a lot of people need to understand that the Russian culture at all, it's not bad. It's a great culture. It's a great nation. It's a great people, as well as in any country in the world. And we have to separate I would divide it on the Russian culture and on the Putin's culture. So everything that relates to the Putin culture should be just destroyed and forget. And I mean, it should be just lost in the years. But I have nothing against, as I said before, to the classical poets, to the classical arts, to the classical writers of Russia, just because, I mean, it's part of my culture as well. I was grown on these books. I was grown on these poems and so on. So for answering your question in summary, we don't have really like hard problems with using Russian on all territory of Ukraine. But if we're talking to especially Putin culture, yeah, it's nothing that's people wants to see there, and hopefully that's not something that people wants to see all around the world.
Yeah, of course. I mean, for some of the listeners to understand, a lot of Russian actors or theater players whatsoever with movies whom you guys most likely know they've been supporting Putin. They were supporting Putin's position. And unfortunately, it started a long time ago. As I was talking the other day to Vlad, there is this famous Russian actor called Perechenkov, and he was back in 2014-15 with a separatist in Donetsk and Lugansk area. And he came to visit Donetsk airport, which was heavily battled back in the days. And without like hiding, without anything, he was filmed as he was shooting a machine gun on Ukrainian positions. So he was shooting pretty much my people, my army. And in my mind, it's a bit crazy that like some people are going to my country as for safari. So yeah, I'm totally understand. I totally agree with you, Anik, that like everyone who's showing this pro-Putin politic, pro-Putin culture, that's just a mess, and those people are really, really horrible. But unfortunately, they do represent big part of the Russian culture. Some singers as well, they are supporting Putin. They're saying like that Russia don't start the war. They just finish wars whatsoever. So unfortunately, yeah, the modern culture of Russia is has a dirty face. Even though some like modern hip hop or rappers, they are actually supporting Ukraine, like Oxymoron. Never been a big fan of him for personal reasons, but what he's doing right now, it's actually quite nice. It's beautiful that he's doing charity concerts and supporting Ukrainian refugees, and yeah, drawing attention to what's happening really in the world, so people have a idea to check maybe some other sources of information beside of like official Russian sources. And the blockage of Russian Today and all the RIA News and all the stuff, all the official propaganda networks in the Western world is actually beautiful, and people having a chance to look up in some other sources and to see some other views on the situation in the world. Because even here in Germany, you will find some unicums who are driving in a cars with this Saint George tribe, and this symbol which was commonly used by separatists, and even right now by Russian army who's advancing Ukraine. It's a orange and black stripe. So yeah, I mean, if people doing it in here in the Western world, then that's a really bad sign, though.
Absolutely. On Monday, when we were talking about Pareshenkov, this actor of theater and cinema in Russia, it was one of my favorite actors when I was, I don't know, 5, 6, 7. There were like plenty of good movies with him. And as you've told me, and as you've showed me pictures of him just coming to as a playground where he can fire some people, some soldiers, just it's absolutely phenomenal. How can you even be such a human? He has internet. He has, I guess, at least to my mind, 2-digit IQ to understand what's going on. And if such people go to this, let's say right now, more or less occupied Donetsk and Lugansk as a playground to shoot, that's absolutely insane. That culture should be definitely destroyed. This proactive, pro-supporting Putin culture should be lost in the days, in the years, and will never be a part of our civilization, humanity as itself. Never. That's for sure. And there is also a thing, there should be a separation between adequate and understanding Russians and Russians who are supporting the regime, because my whole life philosophy, there are good people and there are bad people, and you can find them everywhere. There are different ratios, there are different proportions. Like in Russia, it's like one ratio, in Ukraine, it's another ratio, in Belarus, it's another ratio, and in the Western countries, maybe totally different. But the main thing that the whole term of generalization is not that good idea to my mind. You must be very careful about the generalizations of let's say, a nation.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, everyone in Ukraine and all around the world need to understand that right now, when we're looking at Russia, basically we're looking on the second North Korea, and a lot of people over there, they are basically hostages. And I seriously respect and thank people, especially media people from Russia, who can openly said that they're against the war, they're against the Putin regime. But as well, we need to understand that a lot of people who are keeping silence, they're not keeping silence just because they are supporting this regime, but mostly just because they're scared. And that's not a joke right now. I mean, that's a fact that we have that in Russia, you can easily get in jail for 15 years. 15 years, you can get in jail for saying that you're against the war. I mean, by itself, this fact is pretty stupid and it's just unbelievable.
It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it definitely, just because, I mean, if you're saying that you're against the war, which is mean that you're against killing people, you're getting into the jail. And that's just one example. I mean, we heard and we have a lot of stories how their government and Putin killing his political opponents, he is throwing them in a jail, he poisoning them with toxins all around the world. Yeah, that's the part that we need to understand, that a lot of people who are keeping silence, they are also the victims of this regime and they're just the hostages. I mean, they are just scared. That's why we need to divide these two cultures, like Russian cultures and Putin cultures. I have nothing against Russian culture, but I'm against Putin cultures from all of the bottom of my heart.
Totally agree. Also, one more thing, maybe close to this question, is that Russia as a territory, as a country, is huge. It's like immense. There are 9 time zones, I guess, in just a single country. And for many, many, many people who live behind the Caucasus, like somewhere in Chelyabinsk or in Vladivostok, whatever, they probably don't even know that there is such a country as Ukraine, or something about the war. I mean, and if you go more to the countryside areas, people have no clue and no idea what's going on, because it's, as you said, it's North Korea 2.0, and people try to deal with the basic needs, where to find the water, where to find the food, where to find something to eat, some shelters. Like, it's ancient times in there. And a lot of people, especially in a Western country, think of Russia as Moscow and St. Petersburg and Kazan and whatsoever. But the point is, if you go 40, 50 kilometers away from Moscow or St. Petersburg or any other big city in Russia, it's really ancient times in there. No roads, no lights, no traffic lights, no proper water supply, no energy supply, nothing. So there should be also some kind of differentiation between people who fight for their basic needs in Russia, and they don't really care about the whole other world, because Russian government made them so poor that you cannot think about nothing else, such as to find some bones and meat to eat.
Yeah, and I mean, we need to understand that this is the consequences of long-term politics regime in Russia. Yeah, just because, I mean, they're based on the things. I mean, in general, it's a politics of fear. And why I'm saying long-term consequences, just because the education is probably the main thing that can help people to realize what is going on in reality, not what they're getting information from TV or from propaganda shows, but in reality. And I mean, the education in Russia were destroying for the years after. I mean, from the first year when the USSR break apart, they were destroying the education. They were destroying the level of wealthness of the people, and the people who's living, especially out of big cities like St. Petersburg and Moscow, they don't have any chances to realize what's going on. First, just because propaganda is all around them. Second, is just because they daily seeing examples how the people who have a different way of thinking, how they're struggling, how they're suffering in jails, how they're suffering from the police forces and so on. And so, which is political fear. And third, they don't have a mind. I mean, I'm just trying to get it correctly. They don't have a mind potential to understand what's going on, and not just because they're like stupid or it's the wrong people. It's the result that they didn't have a chance for a good education from the moment that they were born in this country. From the moment that they were born, they were counted as a cows, and they were grown as a cows. They were getting enough food just not to die, enough knowledge to work in a low-pay physical job, and now, I mean, they can be voting for the Putin regime, but just because, I mean, they don't know any other opportunities. That's like blame on the dog, on the street dog that bites you. The street dog has nothing against you personally, but the street dog just don't know another ways of thinking or another ways of living. That's your entire life, live on the streets and fight daily for food.